The forest. Emerging 350 million years ago, it's crucial to life on Earth. Home to 80% of the planet's biodiversity, forests and their treasures guarantee the survival of 1 in 5 human beings. But day after day, forests are shrinking as mankind grapples with an increasingly urgent dilemma. How can we reconcile our ever-rising demands with the need to protect forests' precious resources? In the four corners of the Earth, forests are buzzing with innovative solutions that also respect the living world. Men and women are drawing on scientific research, ancestral traditions, and their imaginations to reinvent the forestry practices of tomorrow. Here's how these pioneers are joining forces to rewrite the great history of man and the forest. The forest in French Guiana is a natural Eldorado. Its biodiversity includes hundreds of thousands of species. It's one of the last Edens on Earth. Its surface area is equal to 1/6 of the size of France. It represents 5% of the Amazon rainforest. But while the Amazon's ecosystems have suffered from human presence on the other side of its borders, the rainforest in French Guiana still looks the same as when Christopher Columbus landed here. But today, Guyana's forest has hit a turning point in its age-old history, currently undergoing an unprecedented demographic explosion. Will it suffer the same tragic fate as the Amazon rainforest? Or will mankind come up with solutions in time to enjoy its treasures and preserve this precious Eden? For scientists, the priority is understanding how the rainforest functions before it's too late.
The density of all these trees and the luxuriance of this damp tropical rainforest, with its rich biodiversity, can be explained by the amount of energy the forest receives from the sun, of course, along with all the rain that falls to the ground. These elements are very important for photosynthesis and tree growth. We could think of the forest as a kind of building with different stories. The first level on the ground is characterized mainly by soil litter, palm trees, and new young trees, and the animal life, in particular insects and mosquitoes. The second floor is the realm of tree trunks, a realm with relatively little light, so there are few branches on the trunks. The third floor of our building is the canopy. This is where we find the interface between the sun, atmosphere, and forest. The canopy greatly limits the amount of light that reaches the ground, and only about 1% of the sun's rays make it through to the ground. The canopy also ensures that heavy rains don't erode the ground too quickly. So the canopy, with its structure, contributes to maintaining the ecosystem.
The canopy is the realm of at least 800 varieties of birds and mammals, such as toucans, capuchin, and howler monkeys. Each plays a vital role in the equilibrium of the forest. By ingesting fruit from the trees and distributing seeds through their excrement, they ensure plant biodiversity, which is the foundation of the food chain. But far below on the ground, it's a different world altogether. Very few human eyes have ever witnessed what happens there after dark. To learn more about the inhabitants of this mysterious realm and understand its biodiversity, Cécile Richard Hansen, engineer with the ONCFS, the National Office of Hunting and Wildlife, plays detective using a system that is as ingenious as it's harmless.
We set up an initial camera trap that was mainly to get to know all the biodiversity on the site. We got over 80,000 photos of at least 30-some different species, some of which are... For instance, there are these curassows. One of the species we're studying, a large earth-dwelling wildfowl. Here's a very rare species, the giant armadillo, which is rarely seen in Guyana. Some animals are quite frequent on the site. The giant anteater, which has found our equipment and is smelling it. Another anteater with a baby on her back. Our famous peccaries that we've now begun studying and capturing to mark them. Jaguars, most likely a female with her adolescent cub approaching. A cougar that looks like it's posing. There's quite a few big cats in this zone. A pair of armadillos mating. Once again, something that's quite extraordinary because it's a rare species. The result of these photo campaigns helped us decide on this area as a study zone and to undertake real capture operations, trapping the animals and fitting them with GPS collars to understand their movements and improve wildlife management in French Guiana.
Researchers are fascinated by two species that are key to Guyana's ecosystem. First, the peccary, a prey enjoyed both by wildcats and humans. But its biorhythms are still greatly unknown. Cécile Richard Hansen built large pens to catch these creatures that move in herds. Awara fruit makes excellent bait.
This species has suffered huge losses here without any explanation. There were numerous around 2002, but now there's hardly any left, and no one knows why. We see this trend in several areas of the Amazon. We need to learn about peccary biology, and that's the goal of the ONCFS.
The other species concerned lies at the other end of the food chain. One of the peccary's major predators, the jaguar. This rare creature is a good gauge of the health of the undergrowth. Using the cries of a female in heat and those of frightened prey, biologist Rachel Berzins and veterinarian Chloé Rodrigue have laid a jaguar trap. The males are solitary, and one must be clever to outmaneuver their suspicious nature.
The goal of our operation is to try to capture big cats, notably jaguars. They're lured by the sound recordings we've placed near the trap. The jaguar places its paws right where we want, and the trap's triggered when it puts its paw here. We make rounds every 4 hours, so the jaguar isn't stuck in an uncomfortable position for too long. Once the animal has been trapped, we come to see and carry out all the procedures to fit it with the collar and so on. Then once the anesthesia has worn off, we set it free about an hour later. Human activity is slowly encroaching on the jaguar's territory because there's more and more deforestation and more livestock farming. Jaguars are losing their habitat, so the long-term goal is to help them continue to coexist peacefully along with man.
This small patch of jungle is only a tiny sample of the extraordinary wildlife that has burgeoned here since time immemorial, far from human eyes. And though hunting is becoming a problem elsewhere in the forest, the creatures here have nothing to fear, for good reason.
3, 2, allumage, EAP, décollage.
The Guiana Space Center in Kourou is the launch base for Ariane rockets. The site is guarded by armed forces, which makes poaching impossible here. An unexpected blessing for wildlife. Home to Amerindians for thousands of years, the territory of modern-day French Guiana has been the focus of conquest since Captain de la Touche first explored it back in the 17th century. But aided by epidemics that the region's mosquitoes held in store for invaders, the forest has always managed to drive man away. It also earned the reputation as a green hell, so much so that in 1846, France built a penal colony there. But even the penal colony's mission was to populate the country and take advantage of its resources. In 100 years, the hoped-for results never materialized, and the rainforest was abandoned. At the end of the 60s, French logging operations forced out of Africa by decolonization were lured by Guyana's treasures to make a fresh attempt. But they met with no greater success. They realized too late that the local market was too small and exporting the wood was too expensive. Those failures spelled good luck for French Guiana. Elsewhere in the Amazon rainforest, human presence resulted in rampant deforestation at the pace of 2 million hectares per year. In other words, the disappearance of an area equivalent to the entire Guianese rainforest every 3 years. But today, this pristine paradise can no longer hold the human element at bay as people settle in greater and greater numbers along its edges. The undergrowth is a genuine laboratory that science teams study tirelessly. The trunks of trees that have stood here for centuries contain the story of our planet's climate, as well as the exact nature of the role the tropical forest plays in climate change. Damien Bonal and his team insert probes into their resin canals. They're studying an amazing phenomenon, tree transpiration.
For large trees, roughly 1 meter in diameter, we've measured that each day they give off 200 to 300 liters of water.
High-tech instruments placed way up at the top of this tower measure water exchange between the forest and the atmosphere. A large part is absorbed by trees and transpired through their leaves in the form of water vapor.
The transpiration is equivalent to about 60,000 liters of water given off per hectare of forest each day. That's 6 liters per square meter. So each day there's 10 liters per square meter that falls and 6 liters per square meter that are transpired. The difference is about 4 liters, and that's the water that goes into the rivers. First into the ground, then into the rivers, and then into the oceans. This enormous amount of energy that is exchanged in the form of transpiration contributes to cloud formation over the rainforest.
Other sensors on the towers take exact readings of the amount of carbon absorbed, then released by trees. The results are clear. The rainforest absorbs more CO2 than it emits, which means less greenhouse gases wind up in the atmosphere.
The Amazon forest helps the planet heat up a little less fast. If we were to cut down this tropical rainforest, then the planet would heat up faster than it currently is. That's why we say the Amazon rainforest controls the climate somewhat in South America, and more so it helps the climate of a small part of the whole continent.
If humans were to destroy the rainforest, as they've done in the rest of the continent, it's not simply plant and animal life that would be endangered, but mankind itself. At a time when climate change and imbalance have hit a dangerous threshold, the preservation of French Guiana's rainforest is more important today than it was before. But isn't it already too late? Haven't humans already left their toxic print on the ecosystem? Though scientists can't examine the entire immense rainforest, they can take a close look at the creatures that ensure its survival. Recycling insects. This unflagging army allows plant life to regenerate. By studying their relentless laboring, entomologists can take the pulse of the entire forest.
We're going to position this trap on a pile of vines because we want to intercept xylophagus or wood-eating insects which play a role in recycling dead wood. About 1 tree out of 100 falls each year. That's a huge amount of wood, and all that wood on the ground needs to be destroyed by different insects. First xylophagus insects, then termites, and after that bacteria. This provides fertilization for the soil, which is very poor here. Here's a nice stump. Let's see if there's any larvae. This is a Passalidae. It's a beetle that breaks down wood at a very advanced stage. So in unmaintained forests like this, there are several trunks in a state of decay, and at this stage, there are quite a few species that are involved in completing decay and fertilizing the soil. Only 15% of the insects in French Guiana are known and catalogued. That's 15,000 varieties which are catalogued out of the 100,000 that supposedly live in French Guiana. It's very important to leave the native forests intact to continue researching and studying these varieties.
A light trap is the ideal tool for taking an inventory of the insects and evaluating the health of the forest. Has it already suffered the symptoms of human exploitation?
I just got bit there on the side of my nose. It's a real bloodbath. Oh, we've got a fine specimen.
This one's a beauty.
It's a good catch. Nice collection.
The prognosis is here. The forest ecosystem is still currently the picture of health. And as with every expedition, the entomologists have discovered new varieties of insects. French Guiana is truly one of the last Edens on Earth, burgeoning with extraordinary and largely undiscovered nature. It's an age-old time capsule, a gigantic living treasure chest for science. But for scientists, a feeling of urgency lies behind the marvel. For one only need venture toward the coast to discover the changes that lie on the horizon. The population of French Guiana is increasing 3% each year, a growth rate 7 times higher than metropolitan France. In the wake of this phenomenon, other trends are also on the rise. Hunting, land clearing for real estate development, the number of agricultural parcels, and the demand for wood for construction. In a biotope where everything is linked, every new path represents an expansion of the human footprint. The National Forest Office, guardian of 70% of Guyana's forest, is faced with an impossible choice. On one hand, the absolute necessity of preserving this priceless green heritage. On the other, concern for meeting the needs of an ever-growing population that is dependent on its resources. The solution to this dilemma: rethink every detail of forest management, starting with the weak link, roads and paths. An airplane with a sonar device creates a relief map. The route of forest machinery is optimized and the use of fuel cut in two. Above all, the impact from deforestation is reduced by 20%. "20% less deforestation is an important gain, considering tropical soil is sterile beyond depths of 50 centimeters. Each tree removed churns up nutrient-poor soil that will take a long time to rejuvenate. But beyond paths, it's urgent to optimize forest exploitation. For Olivier Bruno, this optimization is played out tree by tree.
Guyana's rainforest is highly diverse because there are over 1,600 trees identified here. Only a small number are commercial. Close to 90 have been defined as commercial varieties. Harvesting in French Guiana is really like selective picking. We choose a few trees so not more than a certain number get cut in order to not disturb the forest too greatly and maintain a dynamic that's close to what naturally occurs. We're working within the framework of natural regeneration, so we'll log again in the next rotation in 65 years. This is also one of the main varieties among the exploitable ones. It's a balata. Its inner bark is very pink, and you can also see its resin. The gum is very white gum as it oozes out. It's a tree that was tapped, like the maritime pine, for its gum, which was used as an insulator. Gum from the balata in French Guiana was used to insulate the telecommunications cable between France and England.
For each hectare, only 5 trees on average are felled. The ones slated for cutting are located by their GPS coordinates. The loggers work in a way that limits damage. They use a new ultra-light synthetic cable that can tow trucks weighing several tons over 40 meters. They no longer need to forge new paths or pack the soil, which would disturb the ecosystem. The impact of industrial logging is thus kept relatively under control. But today, the forest is suffering from the impact of another practice, an ancestral one. Amerindians, a traditionally nomadic people, have always lived here in complete harmony with their environment. But over the last 60 years, they've become sedentary, a change in lifestyle that's creating problems for the forest. These communities grow corn and manioc using a slash-and-burn technique. They clear fields by cutting trees, then burn them so their ashes fertilize the soil. When farmers are nomadic, this practice is harmless to the forest. But when it's applied to the same area repeatedly, it's destructive. The continuously bared soil no longer has time to regenerate. Soon, a new parcel needs to be cleared at an ever-increasing pace. Amerindians are attached to this ancestral custom, which is key to their self-sufficiency and fosters solidarity between families by honoring mayuri, or the value of working together.
When we cut the trees, it's wasteful. There's wood that's good for making lumber or building canoes, but we waste it with slash and burn. We do it to grow our fortune. Our manioc is our money. We plant bananas, cassava. We plant everything there. Everyone has to clear their field. I've got mine, my wife, my daughter, my son. Without the forest, we've got nothing. It's hard.
The problem of slash-and-burn practices is nascent in Amerindian territories, and it's become a real concern around cities. In order to reduce the frequency of cutting as much as possible, the Institute of Development has undertaken to increase soil yield. Because if the people are becoming sedentary, they may as well make the most of these new agricultural zones. But optimizing the plots obtained by slash-and-burn techniques means adopting innovative farming systems. Vincent Heslin's mission is to put these solutions into practice around the city of Maripasula in the west of the country.
Slash and burn is above all an itinerant farming technique. In other words, traditionally the people moved every 3, 5, or 10 years. They change. That's a system that works very well as long as the population is small. Today, the population of Maripasula is doubling roughly every 5 years. In 2010, it was 5,500, and today it's 9,700. Faced with this population growth, the only solution is to transform slash and burn into something permanent. There's manioc, obviously, because that's part of the farming culture. But also other kinds of vegetables, aubergine, cabbage, petsai, or bok choy, Indonesian vegetables. Crops that diversify local food cultivation and diet, which therefore benefits the people and improves production and yield of their farming practices.
Mrs. Deal, a farmer in Maripasula, agreed to follow Vincent's advice.
Did you come to clear the land?
I'd love to, but I've got work first.
She diversifies her crops.
Corn?
Yes, that's corn.
When did you plant it?
The day I burned.
Right afterwards?
Yes, it didn't burn very well, so I replanted.
It looks nice now, but when the rains come, it's going to be hard.
Among the burnt logs, we find banana trees, peppers, pineapples, manioc, aubergine, and watermelon. over a dozen different vegetables in all.
Here we see what really is the most traditional practice. And it's an effective one in terms of making to do with what you've got, being able to grow something in a tropical zone. You cut, you burn, and you've got clean soil that you can plant in easily. All that without any fertilizer or farm equipment.
Mrs. Deal knows that in a few years, the soil of her plantation will be too depleted. So she'll have to use green manure, which is more fertile in the long term than a bed of ashes. But although the technique has proven effective, it's far from being the obvious choice for farmers.
If we use green manure, in other words, sow plants intentionally to create vegetal biomass that will create fertility, it works very well. We know how to use it. On the other hand, it means you have to work your field to sow something that brings you absolutely nothing. You aren't going to harvest something to eat or something to sell. However, you're going to produce fertilizer that will regenerate the land so you can grow good crops afterwards. But that's sometimes hard for farmers to accept. To hear, go toil away in your fields to grow something you won't be able to harvest. Instead, just leave it all on the ground. Then later on, you'll be able to plant. A lot of our work is setting an example, showing them how these practices work and why they should use them.
Meanwhile, to improve short-term production, Vincent encourages farmers to keep small nurseries at their homes in the village. Soon, they'll be ready to put their already robust plants in the ground on their parcels of cleared field.
This is aubergine. That's celery.
And back there?
That's peach palm. And that's rambutan.
These little gardens, nurseries if you will, are going to allow farmers to take better care of their crops. They're close to home, so they can be tended to every day, make sure no insects are attacking, keep track of watering and disease. This means that when they're taken to the field that's been cleared by slash and burn, the plants are directly stronger and more robust. In the end, this significantly increases the yield of the slash and burn field. For farmers, it helps generate their revenue in a different way, because it's a small surface that's carefully tended and monitored, and creates revenues that are just as large as if a hectare was cleared for manioc.
Although Mrs. Deal has been won over by this method of farming, the greatest challenge Vincent faces is convincing other inhabitants of the notion of forest protection. They've always lived here and see the forest as omnipresent, pervasive, and above all, eternal. But this false perception is at odds with the rapid deforestation currently threatening the rainforest. Adopting practices that correspond to this new reality is a long-term endeavor. Although it may not be feasible to abandon an entire tradition, major results can be made by modifying just a few habits. Notably when it comes to felling trees, those cut for the slash and burn fields or else for lumber. Instructors from the Guiana Amazonian Park teach a new felling technique that brings loggers a 30% gain in the volume of usable wood. After checking the natural lean of the tree, only 5 cuts with the chainsaw are needed. A hinge is sawed between 1 and 2. A back cut heel at 3. The tree is cut in a safe manner and falls with lower risk of splitting.
If felling is done correctly, you get a lot more wood. If there are splits, you lose a lot of pieces of wood inside. Before, they used to fell trees without sounding them, without sticking a probe into the base to see if it's hollow. If the tree's hollow, we leave it standing because it's a seed tree that will provide seeds for the future. We don't cut it down. Before, people would systematically cut trees without checking whether or not they were hollow. They would fell 5 or 6 trees to get one good one. There were lots of cracked trees, lots of waste. Now they fell a lot fewer trees with this technique, or they will do since they're still learning. It's mostly a matter of breaking old habits, and that takes time, even with professionals.
These internships are intended for Amerindians. Carpentry, woodworking, construction. There's no shortage of projects in the community. Though they don't provide a quick solution to deforestation, the dialogue helps raise awareness among the local people about the need to protect their heritage. For centuries, forest communities have used wood to record their history. Craftsmen today use natural pigments to fashion the Amazonian creatures that people their legends. Amerindians have always lived along the Maroni River. They fish in it, swim in it, bathe in it. Their existence depends as much on the forest as the water that runs through it. But a few years ago, the river began to carry contaminated mud, as toxic for man as for the environment. The culprits, garimperos, gold miners, whose numbers have doubled in the past 2 years.
When I was a boy, the river didn't look like this. It wasn't brown like the color of milk chocolate. It's because of the prospectors. They pollute the river. Lots of trees have died. It's pretty sad.
The gold panners come across the Maroni River from Suriname. French Guiana is helpless. The muddy water is caused by suction dredging that sucks up alluvion in the riverbed, and the toxicity of the mercury needed to fuse the gold flakes together. The rise in numbers of illegal gold panners has profoundly changed the habits of French Guiana's Amerindians. They're now wary of the fish in the river and fear for their safety. Others have started to benefit from the gold trade. The entire Amerindian culture is being turned upside down for a few nuggets of gold. The French government is aware of the growing danger. It's forbidden the use of mercury in official mining operations and is seeking solutions to fight against this new illegal gold rush. Scientists with the WWF and BRGM, the French Geological and Mining Research Bureau, are trying to establish the chemical traceability of gold treated with or without mercury to improve the market. The forest needs sustainable solutions for the problems it faces today, but the government cannot act alone. It's urgent that we shift our understanding of the rainforest and put that to work for the future. The forest is abundant and able to provide those who respect it with everything they need. But in order to find its other treasures, we must learn to look off the beaten paths. Olivier Dumet grew up alongside the Aprouag River. He's ventured where no human has set foot in over 150 years.
We discovered these hidden cacao plantations. Gradually, our passion for them grew. All these big leaves are cacao trees, growing on both sides of the canal. During the rainy season, the river overflows and deposits tons of alluvion. Like the flooding of the Nile, it enriches the soil. The white marks you see on the plants that touch the water are sediments, the alluvion that's deposited on the leaves and the ground. This is fertile ground. The taste of the earth gives it that smell. See where the mud glistens like that? That's the fat of the earth. The aroma comes from the combination of soil and expertise.
These cacao trees were part of a former plantation that was abandoned when slavery was abolished in 1848. They've adapted perfectly to their original wild state, and today produce high-quality chocolate.
Cacao trees grow in the underwood. They can grow in the shade of taller trees and continue to thrive today. This cacao plantation here is atypical because the trees don't grow in rows. They seek the light, and since the wood is supple, it bends and grows in arches. It doesn't look like a cacao plantation at all, yet it is. The fruit it bears is called the cacao pod. It's rather exceptional because it grows right out of the trunk. In a couple of months, they'll turn yellow, and that will mean it's time to turn them into chocolate. Here's one that's a little riper than the others. Inside there's a white pulp that surrounds the seeds. The seeds are what we use to make chocolate. More and more people want chocolate around the world. Cacao requires very rich soil, but there's less and less of that available. Cacao is an economic potential for French Guiana. You just have to have the time and energy to do it. Either we cut the forest down for logging and pocket the money right away, which means it's all over in 100 or 150 years, or we keep the trees and develop quality products from the treasures underneath. It's a fine demonstration of what we can get by leaving the forest alone. It can bring in money. Producing cacao could be an alternative to deforestation.
Olivier Dumet roasts his cacao using methods he learned from Amerindians. He's combined past and present to transform this patch of land into a nurturing forest garden. A successful adaptation in keeping with the times that echoes another redevelopment, inspired by the initial inhabitants of the forest, that of medicinal plants. Mimi Sekou is an Obia man, medicine man. He's one of the last people alive to still know the secrets of French Guiana's plants. He lives along the Maroni River in a protected area. The people of his village still come to him to heal all sorts of ailments. Mimi Sekou's decoctions treat colds as well as nightmares. He's living proof that the forest has infinite therapeutic potential that could prove a treasure for our future.
We use these remedies only very rarely because there are medicines today. We used to use a wide variety of plants for healing. Today, since we have medicine, we go to the clinic more often, but we can choose to use our traditional knowledge for healing if we want. When you cut it like this, the water is fresh. You drink it directly from a glass. It's a cough medicine. What lovely water. It's used to treat adults and children.
The traditional Amerindian pharmacopoeia is extensive. Healing properties have been found in close to 500 forest plants. This vine, when crushed, gives off a strong smell of garlic, the perfect remedy for bat infestations in the village huts.
The tree that repels bats is the kuapokan. It also chases away fever. Here it is. Kanike is used to treat small wounds. This here and this here. You use this, you remove the thorns, rub the bark, and then you plunge it in water. Then you wash with it. I'm the only one who knows these remedies. If we bring young people into the forest, maybe they'll remember something. I once brought the Office of Botanical Research here to show them all the plants.
Little by little, scientists are taking over from Amerindians to discover the incredible properties of the plants in French Guiana's rainforest. Emily Noël is hunting for a particular compound that eradicates instead of heals. She's looking for something that will kill mosquitoes. The mosquito claims 1 million victims a year and has become even more of a threat since the emergence of the Zika virus. But in a bitter twist of fate, it's human actions that allow its larvae to multiply. When the ecosystem is disturbed by deforestation, the food chain is thrown off kilter. Among its victims are entomophages, predators of mosquitoes. The forest then becomes a dangerous breeding ground for pathogens.
We're looking for products that are toxic for the larva of a mosquito called Aedes aegypti, the mosquito that spreads dengue fever and chikungunya. These two diseases cause countless public health issues in French Guiana, and therefore have heavy economic repercussions in the department. The idea is to observe what happens in nature and use that to find solutions to the problem. We've picked this spot to collect plants because it's an area without many resources. We imagine the plants here have to create a lot of chemical defenses to fight off pathogens and herbivores, since they have few resources, to grow or bounce back after an attack. We hope that by gathering plants from these areas, we'll be able to find new active compounds to help us in our fight against mosquitoes that spread disease to man.
Emmeline doesn't randomly select trees for her core samples. Even when it comes to making insecticides, the best solutions are sustainable ones.
Here I take a core sample from a deuterma. These trees are widespread in French Guiana's forests and are mainly used in construction. You can see 3 zones. Here we have the bark, the outer part of the tree. The lighter part here is what we call sapwood. It's the living wood, where all the tree's vital processes take place. This part isn't used at the sawmill. At the tip of the core is what we call heartwood or perfect wood, which is what we use for building, furniture, and woodwork. What we're interested in is the compounds in this part of the heartwood that contribute to the tree's chemical defenses. So this is the part we're going to study in the lab to extract the compounds to test their applications and properties.
Can waste products from logging operations be transformed into insecticides and save lives? An answer is beginning to take shape in the laboratory in Cayenne, French Guiana's capital, which is currently experiencing a population explosion. It's also here, in the more and more heavily populated zones, that the risks linked to mosquitoes are highest. The active substances are extracted from the wood samples. Then they're tested on the larvae of different types of mosquitoes. The researchers need thousands of mosquito larvae for their experiments and keep them under close supervision. If the adult mosquitoes manage to escape, Cayenne would find itself dealing with a serious health crisis.
Are you ready?
Yes, all set. Various dosages of deuterma extracts are tested on the mosquito larvae.
The good news is that we don't see any larva movement in the test tube where we added the plant extract. When we compare it to the control tube, we see they're still very active. So that's good news. It means the extract is very promising. For us, the goal of this insecticide project is to provide elements that favor the development of plant-based insecticides. The appeal is that since this kind of product is made with natural ingredients, it's more biodegradable as well, so we avoid the problem of environmental toxicity that we could have with insecticides of synthetic origin.
Beyond their individual missions, the pioneers of the forest have understood that French Guiana's greatest treasure is not gold, wood, or compounds. It's knowledge. No matter what problems arise from the cohabitation of man and nature, the forest, in its infinite diversity, holds solutions, from the burgeoning at its roots to the clouds adorning its crown. The Forest of French Guiana is an open book, available to whoever takes the time to read it. And within its green lines, this patch of green land, so small compared to the entire Amazon rainforest, could very well point the way towards a sustainable future.